All right, everyone. Good to see you here at MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. My apologies for my late arrival. Much late in the day, as we originally scheduled this for 11 a.m. Had to push to 11:30 and now close to noon. So I appreciate you jumping on board here. So my aim and our goal is to set up a live stream schedule that you can count on each week. And I'll get to the comments and questions in just a second. And of course, the phone lines will be open as well to talk college football with you. I thought that this would be a good time to get a couple hours in before the NFL playoff games for many of you who love the NFL and will be watching, I think, Bills Colts to start, but 3 NFL playoff games today and 3 tomorrow. That's unprecedented. Of course, with them adding a wildcard team and reducing buys to just 1 team per conference. But my apologies. I need to set up a live stream schedule that I can stick to each and every day, each and every week. Maybe I bit off a little bit more than I could chew when I said that I would be here every night at 9 o'clock Eastern time through the end of the college football season, which basically we hit till the end of the season minus the championship game. I said that because of the holidays that we would miss some nights, but we would be here just about every other day, and we've pretty much hit that. So we are live every day, excluding a few days here and there, and most of the time we're live multiple times per day. So I appreciate everybody being here, and again, the notification went out for 11 a.m. and then got pushed past 11:30, so I appreciate everybody being patient and being here with us. I will work on, after a couple trips coming up, I will work on a live stream schedule that you can count on each and every week. We do talk Ohio State football every Wednesday at 2 o'clock Eastern time live with you, and Florida State at 6 o'clock on Wednesday live with you. There's a lot going on surrounding, of course, the matchups with the national championship game. Not necessarily any news now that Steve Sarkisian is working on his Texas coaching staff and splitting time between BAMA and Texas. The concerns concerning Ohio State and COVID testing, those being the big storylines outside of game matchups with Ohio State and Alabama. Of course, that game is coming up Monday at 8 o'clock. I think is the game broadcast, probably kick off around 8:30 or so. In the next day or so, I'm going to announce our pregame show that's going to be extensive. I don't know exactly what time we're going to go on with that, but I will announce that in the next day or so. Our pregame, which will be 4 to 5 hours long, and then, of course, postgame following Ohio State, Alabama, tied an 8-point favorite. Jim Harbaugh has a contract extension with Michigan that runs through 2025. We can discuss that as well. He can now search for an offensive and defensive coordinator or a defensive coordinator. The offensive coordinator, Josh Gaddis, is still, as far as I know, as of this morning, employed by the University of Michigan, but there has been speculation that he would be replaced. We've had those conversations in recent weeks concerning Jim Harbaugh. Brian Harsin has named an offensive and defensive coordinator. That video we released yesterday with Joe Hunk from 97.7 ESPN in Huntsville, Alabama, concerning Brian Harsin, and so much going on with Auburn football right now. Hires Derek Mason, the former Stanford defensive coordinator and Vanderbilt head coach, and of course, Mike Bobo of both Colorado State, Georgia, and South Carolina. And Auburn has hired a new offensive line coach, Will Friend, most recently from Tennessee. So Brian Harsin assembling his coaching staff. And we had a great discussion with Joe Hunk. You got to check out those videos. We're going to release 3 different videos because what is typically a 15 or 20-minute conversation with the guests that we have on here turned out to be 35 or 40 minutes. And so we broke down the Auburn NFL draft, early entries, the transfer portal, recruiting, the offensive and defensive coordinator hires. Just a great conversation on Auburn football. Found myself a great contributor for Arkansas. I believe that video is going to be released on Sunday, Ty Hudson worked for 247 Sports Arkansas, and so we had a great conference. No. He's with Pig Trail Network. Don't want to misrepresent Mr. Hudson. Ty Hudson of Pig Trail Network joined us yesterday as well. Going to release that video over the weekend. Great conversation from him. He was outstanding too from the Arkansas perspective. Also talks some North Carolina football. It's Luke Walker around. He is going to be so pleased with me. I tracked down a writer from 247 Sports to talk North Carolina. And so we had a tremendous conversation on the heels and Mac Brown, recruiting, transfer portal, NFL draft, the future of the program, and a great conversation with a 247 Sports guy on North Carolina football. Texas A&M. We're going to be releasing that video over the weekend as well. I was just telling somebody this morning, in fact, that the mount doesn't work as well. The earlier these live streams are, the worse they are. So I'll say that up front. Don't expect too much, but I will take your calls, 860-325-3687 on those items and anything else. Before I post a number, I have to show you the obligatory Amazon crawl. I don't know that this has done me any good to date, but I keep having hope and faith that it will soon. So if you shop Amazon, which the stats show us that, hey, if 10,000 people watch this video, then probably 40% are doing some shopping with Amazon. So please use the link that we provide in the description section of the videos and shop Amazon using our link. It's the same shopping experience and doesn't cost you a penny. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hunter from Alabama.
Hey, Hunter. How are you?
I'm good. How are you today?
I'm good. What's going on?
Not much. Hey, I don't think I've ever asked you this question. I don't think I've ever heard you say. Do you have a team that you personally root for yourself?
I'm a big East Carolina fan.
So what do you think?
I'm just kidding, Hunter. I'm just kidding. I don't want to lie to you and let it go. That was just a little joke. Not that there aren't East Carolina fans, and I could be an East Carolina fan. So how long have you been, before I answer that question, how long have you been watching?
Just since this season. I
Okay.
found your show about during the Auburn and A&M game was the day that I found your show.
Nice. So I like that people don't know who I root for. I don't make it a big secret. There are tons of people that are watching right now and will be watching this video that know exactly who I root for because I've talked about it and people have asked me and I state it, but I also just understand that my aim is to just cover college football, do the best I can to be neutral, to be unbiased. And I even say that that's impossible completely 100%, but I try to hit about 99%. I'm an Ohio State fan. Grew up in Ohio.
Okay. No, that's cool. I mean, you're not, just because you cover football doesn't mean you can't have your team. I mean, that's I think we all have our team, you know, who are college football fans. But,
actually, Hunter, I think it would be I think it would, not to cut you off, I'm sorry. I think it would actually be almost impossible. I can't imagine that somebody would really love a particular sport and not have a favorite team because that's typically how we all got into it. So I do know that in the NFL, I grew up as a big Cowboys fan, and then they fired Tom Landry, and that just ended that. And then I grew up in Ohio, but I was not a Cleveland Browns fan like everybody else was around me. And it took me about 10 years to come around to liking the Browns when they came back in 1999, when they reestablished the franchise. And so for 10 years, I did not have an NFL team. So I guess that is possible to love a sport. So I still loved the NFL and would watch it constantly, but I could care less who won. I didn't have a team. So I guess that's possible, but I can't imagine in college football somebody devoting as much time to it as I do and not having a team. But go to it, Hunter. Sorry to take up your time. What do you got for me?
What do you think is the realistic, as we're looking forward to this championship game, what do you think this game's going to be? Do you think it'll be this high-scoring, close game, or do you think one of the teams pulls away in the second half?
If anybody's going to pull away, I'm going to go with conventional thinking and say that's going to be Alabama. That they've shown us to be the best team in the country since pretty much week 2 or 3 after they cleaned up the defense after Ole Miss. I have believed them to be the best team in the country the entire time. Ohio State has pretty much equal talent. I actually did a huge breakdown on recruiting rankings, and I got to release that video. I got to cut that video. I put way too much work into it not to do it, to compare the recruiting. And maybe Alabama's got a slim edge. But we've known, based on what we see out of Ohio State every year, that they were going to be that good, that they were capable of it, but they just didn't show it. So they've only played maybe a half against Indiana, a second half against Northwestern, and a full game against Clemson, where we can say, okay, that might be the best team in the country, or close to it, where Alabama's pretty much shown us that 90% of the season. So I think Alabama has now take my analysis for what it's worth, meaning I'm not Nostradamus, that I'm wrong just like everybody else is wrong, because I'm not going to say I was wrong, but I said a similar thing about Clemson, Ohio State, that even though I said, sure, Ohio State can win this game, that they had more question marks going into the game than Clemson. And I'll still hold true to that, even though they answered a number of them. I do think that Alabama's back end concerns on defense aren't as pronounced as Ohio State. I think Ohio State has proven less to me in the secondary than Alabama. Now, they actually contained Trevor Lawrence, even though he threw for 400 yards. A lot of it was meaningless. So they did a pretty good job in that game. But Alabama's wide receivers are just, I've never seen a group like what they've got. And if Waddle can be anything close to a factor or a decoy or something that's going to cause it to open up for somebody else, even if it's the tight end position with Forrestall and Billingsley, his presence is just going to make it even more impossible. I'm trying to think what your original question was, just in regards to whether it's going to be a close game or how it's going to be played. Yeah, people are expecting, one of our Ohio State writers predicted 52-49. I think there are too many athletes on defense, and I just can't imagine that those two teams are going to let it get that out of hand, because usually 52-49 means that you're talking, and there are going to be missed tackles in this game because the playmakers are just so good. But in other college football games, there are missed tackles because of a little laziness, bad angles, poor tackling technique. You're not going to see that in this game. If there's a missed tackle, it's because a dude whiffed because Devontae Smith just put a ridiculous move on him, or Najee Harris. I tend to think it's going to be a mixture of good offense and defense, more on the offensive side. I think it's going to be more a high 30s game, 38-35-ish.
Well, my prediction, score prediction for the game is Alabama 45.
Yep.
And Ohio State somewhere in the 30s.
Yeah, like 45-34, 45-35. I can see that.
And I think, this game in particular, I think Alabama has a lot of motivation going in this game. After the way that things went against LSU, and we felt like we missed out, last year. And I think this group of guys are motivated to get back to it, and they want to play for guys like David Dickerson who's out for the season. If Jalen Waddle doesn't get to play, then they're playing for guys like that. And you've seen these guys really rally around each other this year. I mean, when Landon Dickerson went down, the whole team, came out there, and so these guys, I think these guys have a bond together. I'm not saying that Ohio State players don't,
Sure.
but you can just see it, with this group. And in regards to like you said about the wide receivers, a lot of people forget about Slade Bolden, and he's able to get some good catches this year where teams weren't expecting him to get the ball. And so you got to watch out. I think Alabama has a lot more secret weapons that they can use, because especially if Waddle gets to play. Because you can't guard both Devontae and Waddle. You can't double team both of them. So you've got to pick your man. And it depends on how back to normal, what percentage level that Waddle's able to play at. Like you said, even them using him as a decoy. So I think that's gonna depend a lot on how Sarkisian, plans for this game and how we use those guys there. And in my opinion, Mechie is probably one of the most underrated wide receivers in the country.
Absolutely.
I just don't see people giving him a lot of credit because of Devontae, but he's a stellar wide receiver. He really is.
Yeah. Yes, he is. And when I talk about using Waddle as a decoy, there are certain plays. So you can look at that two different ways. Yes, there are plays that offensive coordinators draw up that obviously draw attention to a player. They fake it to him. They have him on a certain side of the field to draw it away, that sort of thing. Yes, that's absolutely a situation where he's a decoy. Or he could prove to be a decoy in the sense that they're not necessarily saying when they call the play, we're not throwing the ball to you, but we're going to attract everyone to you. Just that you're on the field and you're an option just like everybody else, but maybe you won't get the ball. And maybe Waddle's out there for 15 snaps and only catches one pass, but he affects 5 other plays because he was out there in a certain formation and Ohio State really had to pay attention to him, and therefore that opened it up for somebody else.
Yeah, you're right. That's gonna create some mismatches, guys for like Mechie to get, and Slade Bolden when he's out there. That could create some mismatches to where Alabama has the edge in beating those not so good or less talented corners. And we have the same problem. I mean, you put Ohio State best receiver against Josh Joe. I mean, there's probably a little bit of an advantage from the Ohio State wide receivers side. So they're going to do the same thing. And Bama fans can't be so naive to think that Ohio State cannot win this game. I mean, they're a good, well-coached football team, and I think, even though I think Alabama wins in the end, I think this is going to be a competitive game. I think this might be a classic.
Certainly is the makings of it. It could be a classic. I think that a lot of people, and this is human nature, that only watch their team. And then by extension, so you got all sorts of levels of college football fans. You have your Alabama fans, Ohio State fans that only watch that game of the week. That's all they care about. That's all they watch. And then you have other ones that watch their game. And then you might tend to watch, if you're an Alabama fan, you want to see the Auburn, Tennessee game, or you see teams that are connected to your team. Watch the LSU, Mississippi State game. And that usually how it goes. Or you want to see the big national game of the week. So you're going to watch Oklahoma and Texas play maybe. But basically, your team, and therefore you tend to, especially if your team's good, you're going to overrate them, or because you're not familiar with, let's say, the typical Alabama fan, Jackson Smith and Garrett Wilson, and on down the line, the Ohio State tight ends, Ruckert and Farrell, and just the various weapons. And maybe you only picked up a couple names this week leading into the game that are supposed to be, and everybody talks Sermon and Olave, that you don't realize that they have 4 and 5 stars at the other positions. You know, they just recruited the #1 receiver in the country and signed him, Julian Fleming, and he hasn't really even seen the field that much yet. So the guys in front of him are outperforming him. So yeah, fans tend to be locked on how good their team is and just think, well, the other team is Justin Fields and Olave, and they don't really have that much more.
Yeah, you're right. And I've watched Ohio State play a couple times this year, but I'm not familiar with all the names of the guys. But, you know, I know what kind of team Ohio State is. And I know how good they're coached and seeing them play. You know, they're a good team. And, you know, I just hope it's a good game. I mean, that's going to be a good game. You know, I think it's good for college football whenever, in general, when games are not blowouts and things like that. And we've had games where Alabama's been on the national stage and they're blowing out teams like Notre Dame.
Yep.
And that's not as exciting as when it is, you know, competitive. But I think this game will be competitive. I think these are the regardless if you think Ohio State should have been in there, they're clearly one of the most talented teams in the country.
Yeah, you're right, Hunter. For as much as the sport is getting knocked for it basically having 3 teams that compete for the championship, that's bad enough. If Alabama blows out Ohio State, I don't think this is going to be the same because Ohio State hasn't won in 6 years. So if Ohio State would somehow blow out Alabama, that wouldn't be a good game for people to watch, but I don't think it would really, there wouldn't be knocks against the sport that Ohio State's taken over the sport. It would just be like, okay, well, Ohio State was the best team this year, and it's going to continue to be Ohio State, Alabama, and Clemson. But if Alabama wins in a rout, then there's going to be talk about, like you pointed to after 2012, after Bama had won in 2009, despite losing 3 games, they probably should have won in 10. And of course, 1 in 11 and 12. There's a lot of talk after the game is, you know, it's not Alabama's fault, but is this good for the sport? Like nobody's competing with them. We could hear some of that if this is a 42-17 game.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And I already hear some talk of that. You know, people wanting to do certain things like take one the amount of scholarships that programs get, and that they believe that, you know, Alabama, Ohio State, and Clemson recruit at one level and everybody else does at a different level.
Yeah.
And I don't agree with that logic, but you can see more of that talk if it was just a blowout on the Alabama side. But I don't think that's the way this is going to go. I think it's going to be a competitive game and a good game. And I'm excited, not just as a Alabama fan, but as a college football fan.
Cool. Thanks, Hunter. It's good to hear from you. You have a great day. Enjoy the game.
Thank you. Bye.
Did have some other calls coming in. So I'll let you know. And I probably shouldn't go on with this because as the old saying goes, you undersell and over-deliver. But we are working on improving the call-in system and had a conversation with somebody yesterday that is going to help me with that. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Mark Rogers, working the Saturday hours. How you doing, sir?
Well, I'm so used to working Saturday hours from about noon to 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning that, you know, I just thought, well, these NFL games are kicking off at 1. Maybe we'll get a little bit in. I thought maybe people would, not that there aren't a ton of people that could care less about the NFL, that will just talk college football all afternoon, but thought I'd get us started before the playoff games at least.
You know what? I actually knew you were a Cowboys fan. I think I saw some Cowboys stuff behind you one time to kind of indicate that at one time, at least, you're a Cowboys fan. So I wasn't surprised by that.
Yeah, and that goes to show you how old that item must be. Like, I've got a quilt on my couch over here that's a Cowboys quilt, and I do remember who purchased that for me. And I was such a huge, enormous Cowboys fan that even 5 years later, people were buying me Cowboys stuff, and I would, in some nice way, tell them I was no longer a Cowboys fan, but they couldn't get that through their skull, and I would continue to get Cowboys stuff even though I dropped them in 1989.
So you left them when Landry left then, right?
When Landry got fired, I was done. I was out. Jimmy Johnson came in. No, didn't want any part of it. They betrayed me. Yeah.
Wow. So you like more like the Staubach era, Dorsett, all that time frame, right?
Yeah, I just caught the end of Staubach, unfortunately. Yeah, just caught the end of Staubach, and Dorsett was one of my favorites, and I had Cowboys posters all over my bedroom, and yeah, absolutely. You know, there was a caller who called in last night, and maybe you could answer this question. I think maybe you actually did in the chat, but I will ask you this question. He asked me my most disappointing or devastating loss as a college football fan.
Ohio State?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
So the first thing that came to mind was, and I said this to him, I said, well, if we were talking the NFL, I could answer that question in a split second. But as I move it to college football in Ohio State, I'll give you a game, but it's not necessarily the same answer I'd give you a week from now. There's a ton of them. I think you mentioned 1998 Michigan State.
That for me sticks out, Mark, and I put that in the chat.
Yeah.
It's interesting because we obviously know who the coach of that Michigan State team was. I mean, I will say this, 95 and 96 were particularly difficult because of the teams we had, too. Those were really, really bad, 95 and 96. I must say, to this day, just because how great those team was and who we lost to. But 98 was particularly tough because I just know that team was the best team in the country. And
yeah.
I really, really feel to this day they were the best team. And that was just a bad Michigan State team. They had a losing record. They didn't even go to a bowl game. They had, Jim Burke as their quarterback. And they had a couple of NFL guys on that team.
Sure.
But it was just, and then they blew a big lead in that game. And it was just, it was disappointing. It was highly disappointing. Yeah.
And when the approach from the coach tends to lead, or there's thought that it led to the loss, that's disappointing as well. And in that game, they went up 24-9, I believe was the score.
Yep.
They were up 24-9, and they just, went into this shutdown mode of running off tackle, not throwing on first down at all. And that's when the first thing you do, Dave, and you know this well, and we can point to the Atlanta Falcons against the New England Patriots in the Super Bowl. And I can't think of the coach's name. Who was Mike Smith? Oh my goodness, I can't think of the Falcons coach who just got fired this year.
Oh yeah, that was the former coordinator. Was it Hicks?
No. Anyway.
I know you're talking about. He used to be Seattle's defensive coordinator.
Yes, I can't think of his name. Anyway, he made the excuse after the game that that's how they play football. We don't know how to do that. This is our brand of football. Well, you can still be aggressive from a play calling standpoint and take time off and just be wise in the way you use the play clock and squeeze the game. Now, I don't know. I don't have enough memory of the Ohio State-Michigan State game 22 years ago to recollect what Ohio State did there. But I just remember them going into a shell, and you could predict they're going to run on first down. They're going to run on second down. Then it's going to be 3rd and 8. They're going to throw a pass, and it's going to be like they just went into shutdown mode to protect this 2-score lead, and it was ridiculous. Right. Yes, you play smarter. You play to the game. You manage the clock and the situation, but you don't go into a shutdown mode in the 3rd quarter. It's awful.
Yeah, they still had a chance to win the game even after they blew the lead, because I remember Jermaine missed a few passes into the end zone. Just missed David Boston on one that would have won that game. Yeah. I mean, that was frustrating, because I just know that they would have beaten. But you were covering the SEC at the time, Mark. Weren't you covering Jackie Sherrill in Mississippi State?
Absolutely, I was. I was in the Georgia Dome the day of all the conference championship games and that Miami UCLA game, and I saw everybody in front of Ohio State go down one by one, and we needed one more. We needed Tennessee in the SEC title game, and even though they were an overwhelming favor because that Mississippi State team wasn't that good, Mississippi State had a 14-10 lead with about 8 minutes left in that game.
Yeah.
But Peerless Price went to work, and that was the end of that.
Yeah, they blew it. I still remember, and then they beat Texas A&M. They won the Sugar Bowl. They went 11-1, finished number 2. But you always wonder what could have been, for that team.
Yeah.
Yeah, by the way, I went back. Speaking of which, I watched I went through the old Alabama Ohio State games.
Yeah.
Interesting enough. And I actually pulled up that one Citrus Bowl where Alabama played Ohio State in '94.
Yep, Sherman Williams, touchdown with about 50 seconds left.
Yeah, they had a good team that year. They went 11-1, and their only loss was by 1 point to Florida in the SEC title game.
I was at that game.
You were at that game? Okay.
I was covering the SEC championship game. Yep, Florida, Alabama. Yeah. 24-23, they lost that game. They finished 12-1 and lost one game by 1 point in the SEC title game.
Right. And they still had some of the guys from the '92 team, like Jay Barker and Sherman Williams, on that team.
Yeah.
And that was the one year Cooper beat the team up north to kind of close that in a game that might have saved his job. Actually, I think at the time. And that was a good game. They were leading that game in the 4th quarter, and Alabama threw a screen pass late to Williams to beat them.
Yeah.
I remember that.
There's about 50 seconds left. Yep.
Right. Yeah, that's when Cooper was losing his Citrus Bowls left and right.
Yeah, he had 3 and 4 years where he went down in the Citrus Bowl. Yeah. That's right. Joey Galloway had a long touchdown in that game.
Yeah, Galloway was on that team with Hoying and George. They had a really good team, actually.
Yeah. Strange year.
What's that?
Strange season for Ohio State that year.
Yeah, that team was actually kind of had bad losses, I remember, and they kind of closed out the year really good.
Yeah.
At the end of the year. And like I said, I think that was a must-win for Cooper. I don't think he could have afforded to lose again in '94, because he hadn't beaten him by that time.
Yeah.
I still think to this day, I don't know if he would have survived if he'd have lost that game.
Yeah.
But once they won that game, and of course '94, it was basically Penn State and everybody else. That was the year of Penn State.
Yeah, 63-14.
Yeah, well, I mean, if that's probably, would you say, Mark, the greatest Penn State team you've ever seen?
Yes. Yes, I would.
I think that might be Paterno's greatest team, and still to this day, probably deserve to share the national title.
Sure.
By the way, you want some good off-season work, Mark, you should do the 1994 year of disputed national champions. That'd be a good one.
You're right. I want to do them all. I want to do every year, but I don't know that people are going to watch them, so I don't want to go through every. But I fully believe this, David, and you shouldn't be surprised based on how I talk on here and our discussions. Yeah. I think almost every year is disputed. Not necessarily, now that we're in a playoff, you can't dispute what happened in the playoff, but the entries into the playoff can be disputed.
Yes.
And then, of course, the BCS, it's the same thing, even more so. And then once you get back to the poll era, oh, my word, it's wide open to determine, why didn't this team and that team? And, yeah, I think every year is disputed.
The poll era was would definitely bring up a lot of really good conversation. And by the way, would have created a lot of really good playoffs if you look back.
Oh, my word. So that's what I tried to do last offseason. I looked at 83, 84, 90, 91, I think were the 4 years I looked at. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think there was definitely a lot of other disputed years. Hey, Mark, I did want to get to some observations on the matchup on Monday as well. I think one of the advantages that Ohio State can have in this game, I may have mentioned this, I just want to go back to it. Mac Jones, and watching him, is not super mobile. And I think that's one of the things that I think Ohio State can get a little bit of a pass rush on him this game. If there's one thing I think our defense can do, is I think we can get a little bit of a pass rush. And if we can get a pass rush, that is something that can allow us to get maybe the 3 or 4 stops that we're going to need maybe in this game. And I think that that's one thing that I'm kind of holding out optimism on when it comes to our defense and our ability to get a few stops, is possibly a pass rush. And then I think conversely, on the other side, I think that will help us against the pass rush of Alabama is still being able to utilize his legs. Just your thoughts on both of those points.
I think that we saw a defensive approach a couple of years ago, as we've discussed, that didn't work because there were too many schemes for the players, for the athletes to memorize under Graciano, and it became too complicated. On the other hand, you can become too simplified, especially against a machine like Alabama and the brain trust that they have on the sideline and a capable quarterback. And when I say capable, I'm not dogging him in any way. I mean capable in making decisions. So it's a compliment. He's a tremendous quarterback. I'm not calling him adequate. But I think that, so obviously the first thing I'm pointing to is mix it up. Don't show them the same look all the time. Mix it up. But at the same time, I would think the general approach would be to be conservative in the defensive backfield with a lot of zones, but to be aggressive up front with some blitz packages to do exactly what you're talking about. Because if you can trust your defensive backfield at least to tackle in space or get guys to the ball to tackle, then you make them extend drives, and at least Ohio State has the athletes to make the one play that you're talking about to stall a drive, to deflect a pass, to bat a pass down, to get a sack, to get a tackle for loss. The one play that, not that Alabama can't overcome 2nd and 14, because they can, but against Ohio State's defense, the good defense has become not domination, because that's rarely achieved. It's, can you make one play in a drive? You could get eaten up for 50 yards, and then can you make the one play? Do you have the athletes that can make a disruptive play that causes a turnover, or at least stops the drive? And I think you bring up a great point with Mac Jones not being very mobile. So he shouldn't hurt Ohio State, and they should be able to at least pin him down and know where he's going to be.
Yeah, I think that, if the surest way to stop a drive is probably see the pass block, because usually there's a penalty or a sack.
Yeah.
You get a team way behind the down in the distance, and that's going to be your surest way of getting off the field on 3rd down. So, I think that would be the one thing I think in our bag, because I think we're going to probably, with the coverage, probably play off a little bit. I mean, Ohio State's going to do whatever they need to do to try to limit big plays, bottom line. I mean, they'll let them catch, an out for 10 yards, but then they've obviously got to be able to make the tackle, of course. You're right, tackling in space is also going to be the other thing that's paramount in this game. But, they just don't want to get bombed on or beat over the top for, the long plays. Obviously, the biggest thing is try to make them go the field, and then eventually if you get a penalty or if you get a sack, then that's going to be your surest way to get off the field, of course. I will say this. I think Fields' legs can really be, used for a weapon in this game. Remember, been the thing in the past that's really caused Saban defense's problems is a quarterback with legs, right?
That bothers Alabama. Yeah, I think that's. I tend to think it's overstated because I think that bothers everybody.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
And I know where that came from. That came from Tebow and then Manziel. That's got its start, and Cam Newton. So yeah, there's certainly a track record of it, but I'm thinking, well, don't those guys bother everybody? But it was accentuated against Alabama because they had such dominant defenses in the other games. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think Watson a little bit, maybe a couple of those title games as well as, did a little bit of that too.
Yep.
I was going to make a point, Mark, just on the extension, by the way. I guess Mr. Davis might be crying right now, knowing that the man up north got himself a contract extension when he's already, planning for another coach. Do you think this just goes to show that, they're going to give him one more year to basically get it done, build a new staff, of course, from what it sounds like, basically give him kind of like an ultimatum year. Mm-hmm. And I think that this bottom line kind of comes back to just not being able to have a better, solution or alternative as well. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
My first thought is that Steve Dace gives me a psychology project just about every time I go on with him, just in regards to what I need to respond to, but also just kind of perceiving where he's going with all this, because as you're alluding to, this is his hero. This is his favorite player of all time. And for good reason, like many of us thought that he was the answer when he got hired. And why not expect that based on his track record? And so it's got to be difficult for him to process where he's come to a place where he's with the mob, and it's justified to this point. It's not a negative mob mentality. It's kind of a frustrated, justified mob to this point of let's move on, but they're not going to. Yeah, I do think that if this was at another football heavy school, somebody in the SEC, Ohio State, I would completely agree with you. I don't know at Michigan. I don't know at Notre Dame. I think they're a little bit more patient. And I don't know that Harbaugh has to win a championship this year.
So you don't think they gave him, like, you've got to be able to beat Ohio State, got to be able to win a Big Ten, and if you don't get it done, you're gone, kind of like ultimatum type situation?
Well, if I'm running the numbers correctly, and I don't know, I glanced at one of the articles, but I don't have the numbers in my head, that if I'm thinking of this right, they made a pretty poor financial investment that way then. Because if you think about it, they could have let him hang on for a year, made that his ultimatum, 2021, and then been rid of him or been winning and moving on with him. Versus now, if they make 2021 the ultimatum, if that's what they're thinking, they're going to have to pay him through 2025.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's interesting amount of money that they're going to have to eat there. I mean, obviously, he's going to have to bring in a whole new staff. I mean, he's just kind of reshuffling yet again, the chairs there. So, yeah, I think also, too, would you also say, Mark, they don't necessarily have a better alternative? I mean, if because obviously after 14 and getting Hope, we all knew, I think, in the back of their mind that they were going after him. I mean, that was pretty much, I think, pretty much a lot of people knew that he was the top guy on the list after getting rid of Hope. So, I mean, I think that you think it was just a matter of not also being able to find a better alternative.
Well, I'll finish my thought on the contract extension. Is just that unless he went to them at some point this season and said, I need a contract extension or I'm going to the NFL because I'm the only coach in FBS who's not signed past 2021. And this is not going to help me in recruiting or maintaining a staff. So I need a contract extension. Then they threw out the contract extension and he said, all right, well, That's right there. I got it. It's under consideration, but I am going to see what the NFL has to say if there's any interest. So we sit here, all of us, to some degree, and we speculate about what coaches could fit in different programs, different situations, whether the coach is good enough for the program, or the program's good enough for the coach, and what the fit is in terms of background and geography and culture and all that. So I would think the schools have an even better read on not just who's available or who could be pulled from somewhere, but is it reasonable? Like we sit here and say, Matt Campbell, Michigan, go after him.
Right.
I would think that they would have a better idea through sources of would he really be interested in coming here? We think we're a good match. We think that he should love to go from Iowa State to Michigan, but if he just doesn't care for the program or whatever, wants to take his career in another direction, then I would think that they would have a pretty good handle on who's truly a candidate. And maybe, maybe there's nothing there.
Yeah, I mean, because Campbell and Fickle were obviously the two big names, and that would have been two best names as far as most likely. So, hey, last point, Mark. I just want to say, I know you do the SEC Live. Are you thinking about down the road, kind of just expanding to all five of the Power 5 conferences? Big 10, Big 12.
Yeah.
ACC, so on.
So this was a long time ago when I had maybe 200 subscribers and not 24,000, that I used to sit here on a Wednesday night and I did a Pac-12, Big 12, ACC, SEC breakdown. Did like an hour to an hour and a half on each one of them. Boom, 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 boom. For some reason, I didn't do the Big 10. I didn't have any contributors. That's why. No guess. Anyway, I did the other four conferences, and it was a great time. It was fun. They would bring great subjects to the matter, and I'd have a nice little round table of Big 12. I'd have an Oklahoma guy, Oklahoma State, TCU, and it'd be different every week. So you wouldn't have the same teams represented every week, and we'd all talk at the same time. Not like I do it now where I bring them on individually. And it was a great time. I would like to, as I mentioned off the top here, and again, I'm going to offer my apologies for anybody who's been waiting because I was massively late today, that I do need to deliver a live stream schedule that's consistent, which it is with Ohio State and Florida State, but across the board. And yes, I would love to, I just don't know what the interest is for a conference show. And
well, I was just thinking,
yep,
there's some teams in the ACC and there's some teams in the Big 10. Certainly there's a few programs in the Big 12. Pac-12, that might be debatable, but I would think of 4 of the 5 might be, have at least some teams with some interest. That's what I was thinking.
Oh, I have complete interest in that personally. I just don't know if it's viable in terms of popularity and revenue. Yeah, okay. I don't know. I've done it in the past. Again, I didn't have the following that I do now. Maybe it would work now. And to be completely transparent, one of the big reasons I do the SEC on Wednesday night is it just kind of came together that certain people were available every Wednesday night. And number 2, that I've got an SEC channel that needs content. And so those conversations are clipped off as individual segments for that channel.
Got it. Well, it was just a thought because I know you have one conference. Yeah, I mean, I was thinking that maybe, eventually you would expand. I know that at least with the Big Ten, I definitely think that, there's 5 or 6 programs, if not more, that, people would enjoy hearing from. I mean, I know you already do 2 or 3 right off the top of the bat. So. Yeah.
Yeah, we're pretty consistent with Ohio State, Michigan, Nebraska. I've got connections with Penn State, Minnesota. Yeah. I just don't know if I could pull all those people in together at the same time. But again, as long as we've got like 3 a week, it could be some kind of rotation. Yep. I would love to do it.
just wanted to throw it out there, another idea for the future of Mark Rogers TV.
Excellent. Thank you, Dave.
Take care, Mark.
Have a good one. All right. We'll take some more calls. Thanks for calling in. And I had a conversation with somebody who's helping me out and is going to help us expand that. We'll get us set up with a phone system. And I'm not going to guarantee a date on this, but where you'll be able to call in, just wait on the line, listen to the show. Boom, come on. You don't have to call and call and call and call. So I thank you so much for your patience. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
This is Clark from Georgia. How you doing today, sir?
Hey, Clark, I'm good. What's going on?
Not too much. Just in the middle of the work day, and I saw you were on live. I thought I'd go ahead and tune in. I've been an avid Alabama fan my whole life, and growing up in the state of Georgia, I'm sure you can imagine I've come across a few bumps in the road. But what I really wanted to talk about today was just how really something that hadn't necessarily been looked at too much is how Alabama's defensive line will shape up against Ohio State's offensive line. I do remember, against in Ohio State's game against Clemson, the thing that really jumped off the page to me was, the way they were handling Clemson's front line. I mean, I get it. Clemson's front line was definitely young and a little undersized compared to recent years, but the way they were able to control the line of scrimmage in the passing game and then just, making holes that a truck could run through for Trey Sermon, it really just kind of bounced off the page to me. It's something Alabama should be concerned with. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I think this is the best Ohio State offensive line that I've seen since probably 2014, and it might be better than the one that won the national championship. I think they're as good as a line. They're definitely as good a run blocking line as any. What impressed me about the pass protection is they had some breakdowns against Northwestern. And Northwestern really harassed Fields. But I think we ask so much of these offensive lines against these edge rushers and everything, the blitz packages and everything, is that no quarterback's going to stand back there against a good team, against a good front, stand back there consistently, looking over the field and looking at, 1, 2, 3, 4 options. It's just not realistic against a good team. So I was a bit critical of their pass protection in the Big Ten championship game, but I kind of backed off on that because I think it's just against Northwestern's got a really good defense. Not a whole lot of people know that out there. They disregard them as they're not as talented and all that, but they're really good on defense. And what impressed me, to your point, was those 3 or 4 bombs that I know Justin Fields threw at least 5 balls over like 30 or 40 yards. I think he was 4 for 5. And the 2 just moonshots that he threw that were like reminiscent of, Joe Namath or Warren Moon just, launching a missile.
Yeah.
Those take a long time those plays take a long time. Those guys are fast, but it takes them a long time to get down the field, and you need tremendous protection, and he got it. And he especially got it even after the defense knew this guy's hurt. I'm not saying they were trying to hurt him or knock him out of the game. I'm just saying they know those things. And let's really pin our ears back. He's not going to be running much. We can collapse him in the pocket, and they still protected him.
Well, I guess I would follow up to my next question. What exactly do you think we're going to see from Justin Fields as it comes to the run game? Because I mean, if we've seen anything that's given Nick Saban teams trouble in the past, it's the true dual threat. And I mean, if Justin Fields' legs are compromised at all to protect his side, I mean that's got to put Alabama in a much better position.
Well, they were definitely compromised after he got hurt in the Clemson game, but he's got 10 or 11 games to go. I was listening to some analysis the other day talking about just the kind of shots he's going to receive just to numb him up and get him through the game. So if they're effective, then he's going to feel horrible throughout practice this week, and he's going to feel really horrible Tuesday morning. But through that game, we might not see any effect if the medicine and the treatment is effective. But if not, yeah, we're going to see he becomes Mac Jones. He's not a threat, or not much of a threat, or he's going to take one shot and it's, God forbid, going to knock him out of the game, or he's going to learn from it. But I don't know. It depends how good he's feeling, whether he thinks he can be the guy that he typically is. But against Clemson, he was covering up. He broke contain a couple times and he immediately got down. He didn't play the game the same.
Oh, yeah. Well, Mark, I appreciate you having me on. I got Bama winning 45-31, and I guess I would be right at the over-under. So I guess it sounds about right to me. So I appreciate it. Hopefully I'll be calling in here soon after Bama wins number 18. Appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Call me anytime. Appreciate that. Got a guy from Georgia, roots for Bama. Number 18 in terms of the way they are counted. And again, as David alluded to a couple phone calls ago, we can certainly tear into national championship reviews. Love to do that. You guys would watch them. I know some of you love them, but I don't think the masses do. That's unfortunate because they take a little time to produce. Because I got a recollection of that particular season. Throw out a year. I could pretty much tell you what happened that year, but I want to get it right. So I do have to double check my facts, of course. But man, reviewing national championship years, that's one of my favorite things to do.
The call will start at the beep.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
That's unfortunate.
Please turn on the audio in the background because you're hearing me on a delay.
There you go, Mark.
There he is.
It's
Michael.
How you doing today?
I'm doing just fine. You know what? I was mentioning to a couple callers ago, and something that was stated reminded me of I need to get after a Purdue guest here today. So we'll work on that. How you doing today, Michael?
Not bad. Just getting ready for the coach team here in a little bit. The coach you're thinking of for the Falcons was Dave Quinn.
I'm sorry, what's that?
Remember
Dan
when
Quinn.
you talked about
Yes.
coach?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Thank you.
And another thing, you're welcome. Another thing I'm trying to figure out, how much nickel and dime defenses do you see in both Alabama and Ohio State playing this Monday night? Or do you think they'll just play their base defenses still?
I think that they're going to, we talked about this a couple callers ago, I think that it's going to be their base defense, but they're going to have to throw in some curveballs with the nickel and the dimes. I don't think there's any question about that. You can't show Mac Jones the same thing every play and not expect to get carved up.
And same thing for Justin Fields.
Well, sure. And if anything, Justin Fields, and this is not a knock against him, it's just fact, he has been more confused by coverages than Mac Jones has showed us.
Mm-hmm. And I just wonder if they might be, with Fields not being 100%, if they might do a QB spy. And who do you think that, which linebacker do you think that would be for Alabama Monday night?
So you're saying because he's hurt, they're going to spy on him? I would think they wouldn't spy on him.
Well, I mean, maybe not, but I mean, as far as like if he tries to focus at one particular focus, if he's going to try to run or
I wouldn't spy him.
stuff like that. But
I wouldn't spy him until he proved something. He would have to prove it to me. He would have to prove, because first of all, Justin Fields is not an elite runner. He's really good. He's not Michael Vick. He's not Vince Young. He's really good. I wouldn't spy him. That Alabama defense is athletic enough for Justin Fields. Yeah, he can help Ohio State in the run game. I'm not saying that at all. He is definitely, if healthy, provides a different dimension than Mac Jones does in the run game. But he's not just so dynamic. I would have to see it a few times before I said, okay, we're going to switch things up. Now, I would have that in my back pocket, to your point, I wouldn't be totally like unprepared. I would practice during these 11 days and say, mix that up in practice and say, okay, we're gonna go to our spy coverage where we've got a spy and practice it a little bit so it's not completely out of nowhere where all of a sudden somebody's asked to do something that they weren't prepared for.
Yeah, my prediction is going to be, actually, I'm going to be under the over-under. I'm saying 41-31 for the game. And I think that both Fields, not Fields, but Harris and Sherman will each rush for 120 and have 2 touchdowns.
Who's going to win this game?
That I won't reveal until Monday night.
Oh, okay. Okay. That's the score. I got you.
That's the score, and I will call around 7 o'clock to make my pick.
Oh, well, we'll be here for several hours. So we appreciate you calling in, Michael. And I would love to hear from a non-Ohio State fan who is picking Ohio State to win the game. That's what I would like to hear from somebody.
Sounds good. All right, Dave, Mark. Have a great Saturday, man. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you, Michael.
See you.
Yes. Alabama's a substantial favorite, not overwhelming. This is not Miami, Ohio State 0-2. This is not the Notre Dame game by any stretch. But they're a solid favorite. They're a touchdown favorite. Maybe it's ballooned to 8 points. I haven't looked at it. But and there's good reason for that. Ohio State is shown to be arguably the best team in the country for a game. For 2 games. First half of the Indiana game, second half of the Northwestern game, Clemson game. Alabama is shown to be won over the course of 12 games for about a total of 10 games. Bad defensive performance against Ole Miss, and let's not mistake, Ole Miss is exceptional offensively. So they tear up just about everyone, and if you even break down the 26-point effort that they had against Indiana, they were missing so many playmakers. Elijah Moore, Jerrion Ely, Yeboah at tight end, Braylon Sanders, that Ole Miss scores on everyone. But that was a bit much. Alabama really got run ragged in that game. But that was a long time ago. Florida ran them ragged, which to me was a little concerning on the Alabama side because Florida has zero threat, next to zero threat of running the ball. And they don't have a mobile quarterback. Well, they've got a mobile quarterback. They don't have a running quarterback. They don't have a running threat at quarterback. So think about what Florida was able to do against Alabama defensively. And this makes me think Ohio State's going to win the game. Think about what Florida was able to do offensively against Bama's defense without a running quarterback, a quarterback who's a threat, breaking contain, or running designed quarterback runs, and no running game. Did Florida do anything defensively in that game to set up their offense to score points? I don't think they did anything. The offense, Florida's offense legitimately scored 46 points. And I don't remember the defense doing anything that set them up like at the 20 or scored any points at all. And think about the mistakes Florida made defensively that had nothing to do with Alabama offense. Now, there are mistakes and there are mistakes. When somebody says, oh, your defense made a mistake, they missed 3 tackles, well, that was Devontae Smith making guys who are good tacklers miss. Those aren't necessarily mistakes, unforced mistakes. But there are mistakes like jumping off sides as a defense. I'm just talking defensively. And some pass interference where you didn't get burned. You just panicked. You had him. You had it. The ball wasn't catchable. The refs didn't call it uncatchable. Florida had an interception in that game in the red zone that they fumbled back to Alabama. I should fit in watching the Alabama-Florida game between now and the kickoff. Because I just think about what Florida did against Alabama. with Kyle Trask not a running threat, no running game from the running backs. They ran for like 25 yards in that game. And they made all those defensive mistakes. There were 4 times in the first half that Florida's defense had an unforced error, meaning jumping off sides, too many men on the field, that kind of thing, that it either gave Alabama a first down, converted 3rd and 10 to a first down, or 3rd and 5 to a first down, or made a 3rd and 11, 3rd and 6, or 3rd and 6, 3rd and 1. And we don't know if Alabama would have converted anyway, but it certainly made it much. The percentages went from 30% to 80% conversion rate. And Florida did that 4 times in the first half. They mismanaged the clock at the end of the first half and gave Alabama an extra possession. And then they, again, were able to generate that kind of offense without a Trey Sermon, Master Teague type of running, Mayan Williams type of offensive line in the run game, running effort, and without a quarterback who can threaten you on the ground. Super chat coming in. Thank you so much for that. We'll find out who that was. We've got Mr. TW. Mr. TW, thank you so much for the super chat contribution. I want to remind everyone that this is basically like you going to work. When I show up for the videos I release, all the other content, the live streams, the call-in shows, all of it, I'm going to work. This is my work. ESPN's in my past. 19 years at ESPN, done. This is what I'm doing. This is my business. So I'm going to work. So I need to get paid, and there's a number of ways we do that. So trying to build out some revenue streams like the Amazon thing and other things that hopefully will contribute in that direction. Patreon, your individual contributions, and also some sponsorships would be phenomenal. So anyone who has contact to a business or owns a business yourself that you believe that you would benefit or need to inquire about what type of numbers we draw and who watches, we've got all those statistics lined up for you. I can let you know all the breakdown of who watches us and whether that would benefit your business. So please contact me at MarkRogersTV@gmail.com. Hey, it's Mark. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark. This is Curtis from Cambodia. How you doing?
Hey, Curtis. I'm doing just fine. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's the middle of the night here, so a little sleepy. Just watching you.
Gotcha. Appreciate that.
Hey, Mark. I'm calling you. I'm from the future, Mark. Calling you from the future.
Okay.
It's the next day.
Oh, you're calling
Anyway,
me from the. I thought you were going to have some amazing prediction for me. I got you. You're at man. How many hours is that?
12 hours.
12.
So I'm calling you. It's 1:15 a.m. here.
Okay. All right.
And Mark, I ain't gonna lie, it's not looking so bright, so I'm not wearing my shades right now.
Okay. Well, that's too bad.
Yeah. Well, anyways, I just wanted to call in and just listen to what you had to say, and I really get tired of hearing. I mean, the SEC has more talent than anybody else in the country, but they probably have some of the worst coaching, than anybody else in the country. And I get tired of hearing about, when BAMA and Ole Miss played, 56 to 49 or whatever that was.
Yeah.
Oh, what a great game! What a great game that was. But when Texas and Oklahoma played to the same, they don't play any defense in the Big 12. And we've heard that for 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah.
So when's the narrative going to change? When's the echo chamber going to change? Bottom line is SEC starting to get some good offenses, but their defense is really they're not that good.
Well, that's where we try to break up the echo chamber. I do my best on here, and I don't have a perfect perspective. That's why I say all the time, I consider myself knowledgeable, but I don't know everything, and you guys provide your insight, and that's the way it works. But we're against the groupthink and the echo chamber, so we try to do our best to try to break it down in a way that makes sense and is reasonable, and get everyone's opinion, and then look at it against the results. So you're making the same type of logical conclusion that I've come up with a number of times, and I've stated a number of times this year, that I've said, if you would take all the scores from the Big 12 this year, and even last year, and I don't know how long this has been going, I'd say maybe the last 2 or 3 years, take all the scores from the Big 12 and just put the scores, no teams, just put the scores down from the SEC, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between the two leagues. If anything, I don't know that the Big 12 didn't score less than the SEC this year.
Exactly. I mean, Dan Mullen wants to, whine and cry about, his last game was against, in the SEC title game and everything like that. But Oklahoma torched Florida. And, you've got some guys out. You got your whole wide receiving core out.
Yep.
You got your Heisman finalist tight end out. You don't have backup that are any good.
Exactly.
I mean, the SEC. I don't know. I mean, what are we talking about here?
I agree with you.
Northwestern goes down and piss stomps Auburn. All we hear about is all the Auburn players out, except we didn't hear about the best player, the best corner in the Big Ten.
Craig Newsom
playing that game.
Yep.
Yeah, the best corner in the Big Ten. And I'm a Buckeye. You know that. We've talked before. He's better than Sean Wade. Best corner in the Big Ten didn't play that game. And Northwestern had guys out too. But
Yeah,
we never
they did.
heard that. ESPN, whatever. They don't want to mention that.
You heard it here. I talked about it.
Georgia wins on a last-second field goal against Cincinnati. Ohio State beat them by 42. 42 to nothing the year before.
Yeah.
Pretty much the same team. But and they finally got their quarterback that they needed. Where is all this talent that they keep recruiting? They don't develop talent in the SEC. They don't. Bottom line, I'll take the 2 and 3 stars from Iowa any day against any SEC team. They'll keep it close, I think that Bama's in a lot of trouble. I really do. Sark is a great offensive mind, but Bama's in trouble. This is the best offense Bama has faced all year. This is the best defense Bama has faced all year. This is the best offense Ohio State's faced all year. About the 4th best defense Ohio State's faced all year. That's my opinion. I may be wrong.
4th best
and that's
defense.
why I think Ohio State's going to win.
I know it's. I think Northwestern's probably the best defense.
IU and Clemson's better defensively.
That's a great discussion right there. I know that Northwestern's is.
Okay, so we can take IU out of it. Clemson's a better defense than Bama. For sure.
I guess they are. Alabama's had 2 bad defensive showings this year. And I don't know if you heard what I was talking about before you called. What I can't...
No, I didn't. Sorry.
This is what I was talking about was, to your point, this goes right with it, is I was basically saying, if you look at what Florida did against Alabama, it should raise some concerns for Alabama because it was a 52-46 game. Florida had 4 defensive drives in the first half where they could have gotten off the field, and they committed errors that had nothing to do with Alabama talent. They jumped off sides. They had too many men on the field. They had unforced errors that either gave Alabama a first down or made a 3rd and 6, 3rd and 1, or a 3rd and 10, 3rd and 5. Increased their percentage chances of converting the first down exponentially. They had 4 of those. They also mismanaged the clock at the end of the first half and gave Alabama an extra drive in which they scored a touchdown. They also, when you think about Florida scoring 46 points, and Florida had a prolific offense for all the season except the Oklahoma game for good reason, they did that with a quarterback who's really good, but he's not a runner. He doesn't threaten a defense running the ball, and they have no running game from their running backs. They have no running game at all. And they could still tear up Alabama's, basically just saying, we just throw the ball every play.
I mean, I actually think that Emmitt Smith could have carried for more yards this year than whoever Florida's running back was this year.
You mean 50-year-old?
That's how bad Florida's running game was.
Yeah, 50-year-old Emmitt Smith, you mean.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have, yeah. I mean, Florida didn't even bother trying to run the football all year long. And
yeah, they gave up on it. Yep.
I mean, and we talked about this team from Texas, what College Station, as if they were something great too. They weren't any good. They got beat by what, 28?
Yeah.
21? I don't know how much was by Alabama.
28.
They were terrible. They're bottom line, there are 3 good teams this year. Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State. Everybody else, that's second tier. Notre Dame, second tier, and it's not even close second tier. You saw that when Clemson was full strength and they played Alabama. I mean, it was quite obvious. There are 3 elite teams, and then everybody else. But we just can't just crown Alabama because their name's Alabama and their coach is Nick Saban. Sorry.
Well,
and everybody wants to.
This is where I will agree with you, and this is where I will push back a little bit, because I think you have a lot of great things to say, and there's really nothing that you've said that I don't agree with, but I think there are some other components involved. So when you evaluate the SEC on defense, yeah, the scores don't lie. The defensive performance in the SEC has plummeted. So I think that's got to be a combination of the offense, just there being a much different approach at places like Alabama, LSU than there were 5 years ago. So they're going to score more points, even if the defense is the same. Now, you can look at the NFL draft, and I think that's an indication. I don't think we can just say, look at the NFL draft, and whatever the NFL draft tells us is the way it is. But it's an indication. And there will be tons more players on the defensive side of the ball get drafted to the NFL out of the SEC compared to the Big 12. So maybe that points to style of play, but it also points to your original point, coaching. Maybe the coaching's not that good in the SEC.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's exactly it.
But
don't equate NFL draft picks with development. Those guys are still highly talented people, you know?
There's got to be some level of development, though.
There is. I agree.
There has to be. The NFL's not looking to develop players that much. There's a combination there. They're looking for raw talent, but you can't just completely not develop a player for an NFL team to take.
Which is why what Oklahoma's had 1, 2 defensive guys drafted over the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years, every draft, 1 or 2. Yes. I mean, they were terrible, but, I'll take a Michigan State guy or an Iowa guy, that's been developed, 3, 4, 3-star, low 4-star guys
against these big 5-stars that go to the SEC, they're not being developed the same way. They're not being coached the same way. My argument is that at least in the Big Ten, we have better coaching. You know, we don't pay as much, but we have better coaching. You know, we develop lesser players to their full potential and then above and beyond it. You know, where the SEC, they've got all this talent, and a lot of it's just wasted. That's just, that's my opinion. Not just my opinion. I've listened to a lot of ex-Buckeye football players talk on, well, I'm sure you know, Letterman Row and stuff, when they get together and they talk, and they talk about how the SEC doesn't develop anybody, or they develop, but you know what I mean. They're not
as much
developed the same way as the Big Ten. I misspoke there a little bit. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I do think that it's pretty amazing. Now, Michigan State, they're a case example from the past. They're not necessarily doing this the last couple of Mark D'Antonio teams and now, but obviously for a decade, they outperformed their recruiting ranking by a ton. Wisconsin outplays their recruiting ranking, in Iowa. All the teams that you mentioned, Iowa and Wisconsin right now bring in top 35 classes, and they build them into top 10 to 15 teams. And Michigan State used to do that. Nobody in the SEC does that. South Carolina brings in top 20 classes, and then they produce top 40 or 50 teams. They go the other way.
They pay more. They pay more down there because it matters more. Isn't that what they say? They pay. I mean, obviously their assistants are getting paid more in the SEC because it matters more, right? Isn't that what they say?
Well, that's what they say, and I can't necessarily disagree with that. I think it does mean more to more of the SEC than it does to any other conference.
I think we're apples and oranges there. I mean, I understand what you mean, the passion, but I don't know. I'm a bit of a Big Ten homer, so I guess the passion is there, and you know, and the Big Ten West just as much as it is. And no, you're right. No, it's not. You're right. It does mean more down there. I agree with that. But the coaches that they are getting in there, that they're paying more for, other than what LSU, what was the quarterback coach last year that made Joe Burrow Heisman Trophy?
Joe Brady.
You know, winner. Yeah, I mean, outside of that guy, I mean, who else? Kiffin, Sarkisian, but who else is doing, you know, great things down there? You know.
Well, here's the reason.
Not him. Kirby Smart. Well, okay. Dan Mullen. Are you kidding me? Who else is doing anything down there? That was a former, you know, assistant coach who's getting paid all this money. Who's the great assistant coaches now? That are going to be the next head coaches at these places. They're not going to do anything.
Wait, you don't think Kirby Smart and Dan Mullen are doing a good job?
I think that Kirby Smart is doing a very adequate job with the talent that he does have. Could he be doing a lot better? Yes.
Well, yeah, Dan with Mullen, the talent, but he's responsible for the talent.
Dan Mullen. Right. Well, what has Dan Mullen done? He hasn't won an SEC championship. This is the first year that he won what do they call it? A divisional title or whatever they call it.
Yeah, but understand.
How long has he been in the SEC for?
What was Florida's record the year before Dan Mullen got there? They won 4 games.
I have no idea.
They won 4 games.
But I do know that Jim McElwain actually won the SEC East, though.
Hang on. Let's put things into context.
Okay.
Jim McElwain won the SEC East. You're correct. He won it twice. And he won it against a much.
I didn't know that much.
He won it back-to-back years, 2015-16. So he won it, but he won it against a much inferior SEC East. Georgia was not Georgia, the same Georgia that they're playing now. So Jim McElwain won it, and if you go back and look at the scores, He won an SEC Eastern Division a year in which they lost to Florida State the last game of the year, 30-2. Like, they were not that good. They were like barely a top 25 team. So the divisions were very imbalanced. Pardon me?
Did that Florida State team make it to the college football playoffs then?
No.
Okay.
They've never been to the playoff. Oh, the Florida State team. No, they didn't.
Yeah, the Florida State team. Did they make it to the college football playoff that year or not?
No.
Okay.
No, not in 15 and 16. They were good, but they didn't make the playoff. The point I'm making is, you just have to take everything into consideration. And for Dan Mullen, he took over a talented roster and a good program, but they had a lot of dysfunction. They only won 4 games the year before he started. So then his first year, they go 10-3 and win a decent bowl game. The next year, he goes 11-2 and wins the Orange Bowl. And then this year, he gets past Georgia and goes to the SEC championship game. So he's progressing. I'm not saying he's done an unbelievable job, but I'm saying he's progressed the program. He's advanced the program. And Kirby Smart took over a program that was going 10-2, 9-3 most years, was good, top 10 to 15, but he elevated them to, within 1 year, a whisker of winning the national championship game and then going to 3 different SEC championship games and finishing in the top 5 in the nation. He's mismanaged the quarterback position. There's no doubt about that.
There you go. Right there's your point right there. Ryan Murray, Matthew Stafford. I mean, Mark Richt had that. What was the year that they beat Hawaii in the Sugar Bowl?
07.
Absolutely cripped up Hawaii in the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah.
They should have won the national title that year. They lost a game they shouldn't have won. It's kind of like Urban Meyer or Earl Bruce coaching, So I think Mark Richt had them pretty well set up.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, Kirby Smart he didn't walk into a Michigan State.
No. No, I'm not saying that at all. But he elevated it.
Okay.
Mark Richt.
You won a few more games, but
that's elevate. We'll think about.
Quarterbacks can that guy go through?
But think about if you
Uncle Lou, by the way.
If you take over, yeah, I can tell. So if you got to understand though, Mark Richt did a great job. I defend Mark Richt all the time, but let's call it what it was. He ran a fringe top 10 program. Fringe. He finished in the top 10 in the nation 8 of his 15 seasons. He had a shot at winning a national title in 02, 07, and 12. 12 was really his best shot. That was the year they took Alabama to the wire. They ran out of time at the 4-yard line. They could have won the game, should have won the game, would have destroyed Notre Dame in the championship game, but didn't happen. His couple years.
Ohio State not suspended that year. It wouldn't have mattered.
Sure.
That's neither here nor there.
Yep. In the couple years after that, Mark Richt had 2 more years at Georgia. They were okay. They went 9-3 and 8-4. They were okay. And so he turns this program over to Kirby Smart that's not broken. It's got talent. It's got top. And Mark Richt's recruiting classes at Georgia were, anywhere from 3rd in the country to 15. Usually 8, 11, 6, in that range. But Kirby Smart has elevated them to national championship game, SEC championship game, SEC championship game, 11 and 12 wins every year, top 5 finish. He's elevated it, and that's saying a lot. When you think about a team that goes, let's say, 9-3 every year, to get from 9-3 to 11-1, you suddenly have to. You see a lot of teams where a coach will come in and he'll take over a horrible situation, 3-9 football team, and he'll elevate them to 6-6, 7-5, and get them to a bowl game. We'll all say he did a great job, and he did. But they basically went from losing to almost everybody to starting to beat the teams on their level, beating bad teams, just making sure that you beat the bad teams on your schedule. But to elevate from like 9-3 to 11-1, those two and 3 teams that are beating Mark Richt are like top 5, 10 teams in the nation. So you got to then to race at that next level just to get another win out of that schedule. You got to beat somebody really good. And that's at least what Kirby Smart's done.
Was that the 5-7 South Carolina team that beat them last year?
You gave them too much credit. They were 4-8. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, he lost a game like sure he lost.
You're better at this than I am. I'm just saying that. I mean, hey, you know what? George is a good program. Kirby Smart. I just my point is Kirby Smart hasn't done anything more than Mark Richt has done. Could George be better? Yes. If he could figure out the quarterback situation, they could be a heck of a lot better. They should be competing with Alabama every single year. With those recruits, with that defense, with that running game, they should be competing with Alabama every single year. It should be a nail biter every year.
So again,
and
you're stating something.
It's been that way once or twice. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he's been there 4 years. I guess that's pretty good. 50% of the time.
Yeah.
You know?
So that's exactly what I was going to say. Is that I don't disagree with anything that you're saying, but you need to add more to it. That adds more context and more explanation to it. Yes. Has Kirby Smart accomplished anything more than Mark Richt did? Well, Mark Richt didn't go to a national championship game. But besides that, he
should have. I mean, obviously, in what was it, 03, 04, whatever that was, when they 05, when they went and, I mean, just absolutely stomped Hawaii.
07, yeah. But they
07,
didn't.
With no Sean Moreno, and who was the quarterback there?
That would have been Stafford. 07? Yeah, that would have been Stafford.
That was,
yeah.
To me, that team reminded me of the 15 Buckeyes. By far the best team in the country. However, actually the 98 Buckeyes is a better analogy. When the 98 Buckeyes were the best team in the country, got beat by Michigan State, lost the game they shouldn't have lost, and didn't make it into the BCS playoff game, or the BCS game. If Georgia makes it in the BCS game that year, we're not talking about 1981 again, you know? And I'm not a Georgia fan. I don't know why I'm sticking up for Georgia right now, or Mark Richt. I mean, Kirby Smart is a very, very good defensive line. He has bungled his quarterbacks. And thank God he has, because we have Justin Fields right now at Ohio State. Thank God he has. I still want to know what happened to the transfer from Wake Forest who opted out this year. Was it that he realized that he wasn't going to play, that the walk-on was going to get play in front of him, or was it that he realized that they couldn't develop a quarterback? I don't know which one it was, but pretty strange situation that guy didn't even play. You know? So what was Jamie Newman, is that his name?
Yes.
From Wake Forest?
Yes.
And then they start the walk-on. He played decent. Don't get me wrong, he played decent, but when, you know, the defenses figured him out, well, you know, they figured him out, and then JT Daniels come in, and JT Daniels played better, but then again, they beat Cincinnati on a last-second field goal. They've got more talent in their fourth string than Cincinnati does in their first string. How does that happen?
But you also know who's responsible.
Where is
You also know that this is not the NFL, so you don't have a GM or a personnel manager responsible for the players on the field. You got a coach. So for as much as we can blame Kirby Smart for underachieving with the talent he has, he's responsible for the talent on the roster. He brought in all that talent. That is, again, an upgrade from Mark Richt. It's not a huge upgrade, but it's a significant upgrade. It's a decided upgrade.
Right. Have you, going along with what you're talking about there, have you ever listened to His last name was Bates. He played for Spurrier during the national title. He's got these little shorts about Steve Spurrier, this or that. And I believe it was Jesse Palmer was talking about, he threw an interception. He come running off the field going, my bad. Steve Spurrier looked at it and goes, no, not your fault. I recruited you. I signed off on you. That's my fault. So I mean, pretty good stuff there. You're exactly right. Like you said, they don't have a GM who's bringing these guys in, but the head coach is, and that's on his development. That's on his player personnel, whatever you want to call it.
Exactly. So, in 15 years, Mark Richt took Georgia to 5 SEC championship games, and he won 2. In 5 years, Kirby Smart has taken Georgia to 3 SEC championship games, and he's won 1.
Okay. So, but I would also argue that the SEC East was much better during the Mark Richt era. I mean,
yeah.
Florida's been a mess. Let's be honest. Tennessee is a mess.
Well, Florida's not a mess now.
They're not a mess now, but they were. But you and I just talked about how Jim McElwain had 2 SEC East titles during that time.
Yeah, and Kirby Smart only played against. He only played against that Florida team 1 time. He played against Dan Mullen the other times.
Again, back to my point, Dan Mullen is overrated.
When anytime anybody throws out underrated, overrated, I don't know who's doing the rating, so I don't know who's saying that Dan Mullen's the greatest coach in the world. So they would be overrating him, but I don't know who's overrating him. So I don't know. I don't know what our point is in all this. It's good discussion, but
I don't know either.
I know that you think that the SEC is overrated.
Yeah.
And so I just used a term that you threw out that I pushed back on, but I'll throw it because the SEC is considered the best conference. I had a caller call me the other day.
Let's be honest.
They have the best talent. Yeah, the recruiting rankings tell us that, and they're accurate. Not perfect, but they're accurate. They're not perfect.
Correct.
But I will argue and have for 15 years that while the SEC has been the best conference and is largely the best conference, it hasn't been the best conference every one of those 15 years. There is every so often a conference, the Big Ten maybe, and there's been a couple times that I thought that it might be the best conference that particular year. And there was actually a year that I thought the ACC was really good. But the SEC is overall, and the results would bear that out. But I will argue that it's not as big a gap as most people think it is between the SEC and the next.
100%.
Yes, it's not.
Anyways, Mark, well, thanks for taking my call. And I don't know how we ended up talking about Georgia and Florida. And
That's all right.
And it turned into a great conversation.
Yeah.
I appreciate everything.
Absolutely.
And I hope that I made sense at 1:45 a.m. I believe it is Friday night, Saturday night, whatever night it is. So, as you can tell.
I appreciate the call, man.
No, thank you, brother. And talk to you again soon, bro.
Yeah, call back anytime. Have a great day.
All right, bye.
Get some sleep.
You too. Bye.
Bye. All right. Yeah, we went in circles there, so I don't know what where we wound up, but all these things are great debates. And if you call me with a not so great debate, meaning that's not an argument, if you're telling me that if you're going to call up and say, and this is not an NFL show, but this is just an easy one to throw out, and you call up and say, who's the greatest quarterback of all time, Joe Montana or Tom Brady or Peyton Manning, then I'd say, okay, we've got a great discussion. But if you called up and said, who's the greatest quarterback of all time, Joe Flacco or Tom Brady, then I'd say, well, we should not be talking about this. That happens from time to time. People throw out ridiculous arguments that, I told somebody this the other day about answering some of your questions and comments and so forth. And I said, I love a great debate. I love when somebody challenges me on something where I've stated, oh, this is the greatest of this, or this is the best of that, or this is the top five. And somebody says, well, what about this or that? And I say, you know what? You got a great point. Let me look more into it. Yeah. Maybe I still disagree with you, but you brought some great arguments, or maybe you changed my mind. And I thought, you know what, that top five, I could see somebody else being in there. But sometimes what is the more difficult discussion to have is when somebody brings me a discussion or a debate and I'm like, that's so ridiculous. I don't even know how to respond. It's so mind-numbing wrong that I don't even know how to respond. A lot of good comments here in the live chat. I'm way behind. Dr. Love says that Steve Dace picked Ohio State. And I got to get to the other super chat. Let me jump on this one. I didn't read the full comment here. Mr. TW, sorry about that because I got a phone call. Hey, Ole Miss didn't run it up on Arkansas. Woo, Pig Suey picks. 5 picks, yes, against the mighty Ole Miss Rebels. Yes, I did actually have that game in mind when I made that comment. I watched that game. It was a fun game. Arkansas had, was it 5? I think it was 6. Look this up. I think it was 6 picks on Matt Corral. I think maybe it was 5. 5's a ton. That's enough. Arkansas had a fun year. And Mr. TW, if you love Arkansas football, this weekend we're releasing a look at the Arkansas NFL draft situation, transfer portal, recruiting, talking about the state of the program, the job Sam Pittman's done. Great conversation with a guy from 247 Sports, Ty Hudson. Okay, Buckeye till die. I agree with you. The transitive property does not work in college football or any sport. All sports are the same when it comes to situations like this. But this is when it does work. When I can say there's a transitive property to start to prove my point, there's another one. There's another one. There's another one. And I can give you like sometimes 28 transitive properties and say these all back my argument. That's when they start to add up. That's why a resume or track record means something. Ohio State, Purdue 49, Ohio State 20. What does that mean? Well, that means on one particular night that Purdue ran Ohio State all over the field, and we can talk about all sorts of impact or elements or components of that game, home field, the poor young man who obviously was cancer-stricken. All those things that went into that game, that lightning struck. And Purdue was decisively better than Ohio State, kicked their rear ends for one night. Okay, that's a transitive property in and of itself. Purdue was better than Ohio State that night. Well, all the other transitive properties tell us for the other 13 times that these two teams went elsewhere and hit the field, that Ohio State was a lot better than Purdue. Because over the course of 14 games, Ohio State went 13-1 and Purdue went 6-7 against light competition. So who was the better team? Ohio State. Who was the better team on that night? Purdue. It wasn't even close. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, who's on the line.
What's up, Mark? It's J Love T, man. How you doing, brother?
J Love T. I'm doing well. What's going on, man?
Man, listen, man. I'm ecstatic. We done hired our dream TV coach and Coach Tavares Robinson. Oh my gosh, man. I feel like we won the national championship right now, man.
I didn't know that that happened. When did that happen?
30 minutes ago, man.
Okay.
It's live and official.
All right.
Live and official, man. So we got our TV coach. Hopefully we keep our foot on Manny's neck, because at the end of the day, he has to get a reliable defensive line coach to make his system work, and a real linebackers coach. We haven't had a real linebackers coach, Mr. Rogers, in 8 years, and that guy was Michael Darrow. And ever since he's left, it's been excuse my language, show. Ever since. So we need to stay up for this by all means necessary, man. Because if Manny can fix this defense, fix the staff, I'm telling you, Manny will be back, man, sooner than later, dude.
Well, that makes me feel good only in that if you go to the front page of my Miami channel and look at the front page, the video that we posted there says that it's got a big picture of Tavares Robinson and says, hire this man.
Yes, by all means. I mean, he's born and raised. He's been a pain in our butt in recruiting for the past 15, 16 years. Come on now. Come on, somebody. You know, I mean to still hold someone's line right quick. But come on now, man. This like I said, man, just the beginning. At the end of the day, I was speaking to one of my mentors. We expect Manny to run the defense, but for whatever reason, in order for that to work, man, we need a real defensive line coach. It cannot be a Mickey Mouse. You need a defensive line coach that can help them set the system up. If not, this hire is just a waste. Well, it's not a waste, but it won't really bring the effect that it should. So it is what it is, man. It is what it is.
Good stuff. All right, you're fired up.
Yes. Well, thank you for taking my call, Mark. I hope when you do the next Hurricane show, you take call-ins, man. The Hurricanes, we've been back and forth for 2 years now, Mark. 2 years. Come on now, Mark. Show us some love, Mark.
All right, this is what I'm going to tell you, J Love T. I'm going to commit to this right now, and I got to write it down somewhere where I'm not going to forget. I will do a call-in show in the next week on the Miami channel, and I'll just
have also Mark call through for me. Come on, man. Come on, somebody. Come on now.
all right.
Come on. I wish you would. Please, I appreciate it.
Okay, I spoke it, so I got to follow through now.
Yes, sir. And I'm gonna hold you to it, Mark. Come on now. You know I'm gonna go record this now.
All right, man. Appreciate the call.
Have a good one.
Have a good one. All right. Somebody hold me to that, because if I don't write it down, if I write it down in this mess, I probably can't even find it on that piece of paper. I got all sorts of crap written down. Here we've got the week 5 predictions from last year. That was, Went 17-6 against the spread that week. Good Lord. That was a good week. 21-2 money line, 17-6 against the spread. Yeah. Nice. Pick any big upsets that week? What do we got? Anyway. Yeah. Justin Firm. Appreciate that. Go Buckeyes. Ohio against the world. Appreciate that. All right. Where else are we going with this? We've got people that are too dumb to understand simple concepts, unfortunately, on the line somewhere. Mike, 3883. You're talking my language there. Yes, we need some Miami sponsors. We need to keep that show going. Need some sponsors. What do we got here from Jacob? Hey, Mark, what do you think of the parity issue in college football today? Do you think that the issue is endemic to the playoff, or a specific effect of a few programs being great at the moment to the playoff? I think that for any school to have a chance, that this doesn't guarantee that they will. This just means that they will then have a chance or opportunity to be dominant in football. You have to have buy-in and commitment from the top. It has to start at the top, and everybody needs to be on the same page, on the same line. There has to be a meeting of the minds from the powers that be that run the school to say, sure, we're here as an academic institution. That's what's most important. But we are committed for whatever benefits we want to draw from it, money, prestige, increased enrollment, name brand, whatever. We want to be great at football. Okay. Does everybody agree with that? And this may come to the detriment of this part of campus or this department or other sports. We may be horrible at everything else. Probably not, though. But we may have to suffer that sport, this sport, this sport, that department, whatever. But we are going to pump money. And money doesn't solve everything, but money's the start. You have to have it into the football program. Now, does everybody agree? Is everybody on board? If you're not, then you need to either get in agreement or take a hike, go somewhere else, because we are going to be the next Clemson. We're going to do what they did. So that's the first step, is everybody needs to be committed to, this is a football school. Now, nobody's going to say that. Nobody's going to phrase it that way, but we're a football school. We're committed to winning in football big time. That means we do crazy things that cost a ton of money. We'll fly assistant coaches wherever to have a one-on-one, back when we could, have a one-on-one with a recruit. We'll do anything. We'll spare no expense. Just like Alabama, our coaching staffs, with all these analysts they've got running around doing every little thing, we'll have so much quality control and so many analysts that we'll have a staff of 20. We'll hire nutritionists and psychologists, and we'll do everything. Now, again, this doesn't guarantee. You got to then execute and do it the right way. That doesn't guarantee. You can decide all those things and make bad hires and not do it right. But that has to be the start of it right there. And I think there's very few institutions that have that from top to bottom and then don't have things getting in the way, like politics or egos or money, like at places like Michigan and Texas.
Press 1 to start the call or 2 to the call will start at the beep.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's George.
Hey, George. Are you moved in?
No, first of all, I want to say I told my landlord I'm staying 30 more days. I'm on month to month now.
Okay.
Because as soon as the Democrats won,
Yeah.
the first thing they said is, the first thing we're going to do is get you guys $2,000 more. And I could use $2,000 more traveling cross country. You know,
yeah.
a long way.
There you go.
Watch us not get it now, you know. But anyway, what I called to talk about was, I am proud of college football to know that nobody cheats except for Miami and SMU. What a good bunch of guys. What a bunch of orange programs. Oh, yeah, and Dan Mullen messed up a little bit talking to a player before he was allowed to. But other than that, everybody's pretty straight up, aren't they?
Yeah, well, I don't know. But, yeah, there is cheating, and then there's a lot of these stupid NCAA rules that people slip up on that are just insane. You know, you gave this kid a notebook, and, you get fined for that.
The reason it bothers me is Miami was rolling. And I have nothing against Miami, and I'm not for them. But they were rolling. And if they wouldn't have stepped in and did what they did, I really think Miami would have 10 or 15 national titles now. I mean, they practically gave them the death penalty.
Practically. That didn't derail them for that long.
Yeah, it drug out forever. They didn't make a decision for like 3 years, left them in limbo. Anyway, I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Alabama, doesn't their coach own a car dealership and give the players cars openly or something like that?
There was a lot of crap to weed through in that Miami mess.
I love it. Nick Saban's players get caught with a 45 in her waistband at a nightclub, and it just disappears. No problem. That's Alabama. The guy plays the next week, you know.
Yeah, if we only knew. If we only knew.
Right. Yeah, I'm just saying, man, they need to ease off a little bit. They need to let some other teams cheat and catch up. Florida was starting to look pretty good, and look what happened to us. They're like, whoa, slow down. You're going too fast.
So only the best are cheating. Nobody else is cheating.
Everybody is. They don't care unless you start winning 11 games a year, and then they decide, should we let them take the next step, or should we smack them with a recruiting infraction? Anyway, I'm excited about the game. Ohio State versus Alabama.
Yeah.
I think Alabama they'll be able to contain, what's his name,
Sermon. Yeah.
Yeah, God, he's great. I love the kid.
Yeah. He's had a great run.
His numbers speak for themselves. But I think Alabama will be able to focus on stopping him. And I don't think Justin Fields is going to be able to handle Alabama's defensive scheme. I just can't see him lasting a whole game throwing that ball against Alabama.
Your Florida Gators did.
We did what?
You guys put up 46 points.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Well, okay. I see your point there. I don't think Justin Fields is that cerebral. I mean, I hate to go with the media on something, but I see the look in his eyes. He looks like shell-shocked sometimes.
He didn't look shell-shocked against Clemson.
That's Clemson. Clemson didn't play anybody all year. They're in the ACC.
Okay.
And Ohio State didn't have a big schedule this year.
No.
I mean, what's their measuring stick this year? Northwestern?
Clemson.
Oh, good point. Yeah, there you go. Man, oh man.
Clemson, Northwestern, Indiana. Those are the three best teams they played.
What's the point spread on this game?
8.
8? That's tough. It'd be easier to just take the money line, but you don't really make as much money that way.
No, not nearly as much. If you take Alabama in the money line, you're probably, I got to think you're only going to make about 20%, 25% of your bet.
Right, so you bet $100 to win 20.
Yep.
Right, that's insane. That's not gambling. Gambling is when you get on. Don't ever gamble backwards like that. It's insane.
Well, if you're positive Alabama's going to win the game, then you're going to win $20.
If you're positive. But in the day and age of COVID, 4 minutes before the game, they might tell you your star quarterback can't play because he walked beside somebody that tested positive. You know, you never know.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure if Alabama's going to win the game. I haven't made my pick, and I'm on the border. I'm on the fence.
I don't see how anybody could bet money on Ohio State to beat Alabama at this point.
Really?
It's just wide up. Yeah.
Oh, I could see Ohio State winning this game. It wouldn't surprise me a bit.
I can see a small bet, $100 or less, but I can't see real money taking this risk. There's better bets in the world than this. This is tough. This could go either way.
Yeah, but I want to see what the money line is on Ohio State in this game. It's got to be like 250 or 300. Let's see here. Alabama.
All right. Thank God we only have a few days to wait to find out. 2 days. Right?
2 days. The money line is plus 250 for the Buckeyes and minus 300 Alabama.
That is insane. You got to bet 300 to win 100?
Yeah.
And you bet 100 to win 250 if you take Ohio State.
Yeah. And that is where Vegas makes its money. They just made $50 off the difference. They don't pay the same both sides. It's a ripoff.
It totally is. They keep tying these point spreads on these games, and everybody loses, and Vegas wins all the big,
Yeah.
Everybody gets their money back, and Vegas takes 10%. When it's a 13-point spread and they win by 13, I think that's how that works.
No, you get a push. You get your money back.
But Vegas takes 10%.
No, you get your money back.
Every dime?
Yeah.
No, there's a reason they put those half of points in there.
Well, if it's a half a point, it's a half a point. That's not a tie. I've never seen a final score of a football game 40 and a half to 37. That's why they put the half point in. It's not.
My brother calls me every time the point spread gets tied. He tells me Vegas just won all the money. They got paid by the losers and the winners.
No.
You get your money back, but they get a percentage for handling the bet.
No, they don't. They don't get a percentage for handling the bet. They give you all your money back.
So Vegas loses money when it ties the point spread?
I've been through it 100 times. If I bet Alabama to win against the 8 points, if the point spread stays on 8, if it's exactly minus 8, Alabama wins the game 38-30, and either side bet. If I took Alabama minus 8 and they win by 8, I get my money back. I didn't win, I didn't lose. It was a push.
Every time.
Yes.
And what if you bet on Clemson? Ohio State, same way?
Well, I took Ohio State plus 8. Yeah, it was a push. It was a push either way. Yeah.
So Vegas loses? They did all that work for nothing?
They shouldn't have a point spread that lands on an exact point. They should always have a half.
I'm going to have to look into this.
Look into that. It's a great point that you made because but I've made I don't know how many bets in Vegas where it was a push and I got my money back. I got all of it back.
Interesting. That doesn't work that way when you bet with your local bookie. Maybe Vegas does that, but not when you're betting with a local Vietnamese triad. That's not how it works.
Where Vegas is taking the 10% is exactly what we just saw there. Where if everything was fair and they didn't need to, pay people and build fancy hotels, then they would give Ohio State plus 300 and Alabama minus 300. That would be fair. But they got to take a cut. So that's where they take it. Plus, most of the point spreads are minus 110, meaning you've got about 110, as you well know, 110 to win 100. So that's where Vegas takes its 10%. You win about $91 for every 100 you bet.
Okay.
Against the spread.
All right, what are we going to talk about after we get done talking about who won Alabama versus Ohio State? Where are we going after that?
You talking about after the game? I don't know.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about next year. Who's going to win next year? You're talking about directly after the game.
Well, after the game, you're going to have a few shows talking about the national title game, but then...
Oh, my word, George. There's more to talk about now than there's ever been. I got transfer portals and NFL draft and recruiting, and I got to tell you who the top 10 quarterbacks are for next year and the top 10 offensive linemen, and got to look at all the schedules and all that stuff. Tons of stuff to talk about.
What
Dan Mullen said yesterday?
Yeah, if Dan Mullen won't shut up, there's always something to talk about.
I can't believe I felt my brain so fast. I was on cloud 9 games into the year, so, and now I hate my coach, and I'm despondent, and I can't cheer for my team no more. And what if we keep him for another year in Todd Grantham? I got to go do this again. We had a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, and we did that. Now what? I mean, he could have won it. All we had to do is play 1 or 2 more games. We lost to Alabama by 6, and then imploded. Oh no, I forgot about the shoe throwing incident. Started earlier. All right.
All right, George.
Caller.
Appreciate it, man.
See you later.
Have a great day. All right, I think we'll wrap it up. We did have a few people calling in, but we're losing steam here. We got 86 on the line. Yes, Dr. Love. So I'll be here before the game, after the game on Monday night. How far in front of the game? Let me figure that out. But a good 3 to 4 hours. We're going to do a long pregame show. We're going to be on here for hours before the game. And then after the game, as soon as the game ends, boom, we're here. So we'll be here, Dr. Love. Appreciate everybody jumping on the line. I believe I acknowledged all these super chats, which there were 2. So keep in mind that this channel will succeed based on your contributions and sponsorships. So if you've got connection to any sponsorship possibilities, let me know at MarkRogersTV@gmail. You can always contact me at MarkRogersTV@gmail. And also, of course, appreciate the super chats. You can contribute directly to the channel through Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal. Just search Mark Rogers TV. All right, folks, we will see you soon. Appreciate it. We will see you. We've got videos coming out all day. Videos coming out all day tomorrow. We will definitely see you Monday afternoon. Pigskin Pete and I get together noon on Monday, and then we're going to be live leading into the game. So if I don't show up tomorrow or later today, definitely Monday at noon Eastern time. ABI, did I miss something? Oh, did ABI give us a super chat? Is that what I missed? I don't want to miss any. I don't see anything. I don't see anything. I don't see anything. Monday at noon, if not sooner.